We'll finish up our NHL news by going south of the border, but not too far south, just about an hour past the border to Buffalo, where things continue to just be awful for Sabres fans. I feel for them because it has been a terrible run and they were really bad. And then they got Jack Eichel and now they're stuck still being bad. Ralph Kruger refuses to play. $9 million player, Jeff Skinner, just refuses to play him because I guess he's not providing what Kruger's looking for. The Sabres have now lost 5 in a row. Um, and it seems like their season really is going nowhere. Taylor Hall, the the bet on himself that he made is turning out to be a very, very brutal bet. And the buzz continues to grow about the fact that the Sabres, you kind of have to go back and rebuild again at this point because they missed on a lot of first round picks and you're stuck with Jack Eichel and not much else. You've got Rasmus Sandin as well, who's solid, but people are talking about Jack Eichel being moved, and I don't know if Buffalo ownership or the general manager will ever actually do that because it's so hard to ever move a player of that caliber. You always end up losing a trade, but it is interesting to think about because I just feel so bad. It'd be like the Leafs just being brutal the last couple of years and already talk of like trading Austin Matthews, and I can't even imagine doing that.
Yeah, well, we had that first crack at it where we were picking up guys like Kadri and Riley in the draft, and then we bolstered the roster with a Kessel, a Phaneuf, and it was like, here we go, we're gonna make a run. And it was just like, no, that was a pseudo rebuild. Toss all that away, start from scratch again.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, Hall, Eichel, Skinner, Bennett comes to mind, Cousins. You, I was kind of glad not to be in the same division as Buffalo this season, and that seems to be totally irrelevant. There's so much value there that, I mean, you could probably really bolster the drafts if you're willing to burn it all down and start from scratch. And I don't know how much more failure you need before that's your only choice, but yeah, I mean, Eichel came in the same draft as McDavid, eh?
No, he was with Matthews. He was number
Oh,
2 behind
no, that
Austin.
was Line.
Oh yeah, sorry, you're right. Yeah, he is 2 behind McDavid. You're correct. Yeah.
So probably would have been a number one player in almost any other draft.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeesh.
And it's so hard to move off a player like that. I'm reading an article here on Sportsnet, so a couple of like interesting ideas to bounce off of you. My absolute nightmare would be this first one where Eichel gets moved to the Boston Bruins for David Krejci and 4 first-round draft picks from the Boston Bruins. That terrifies me. I guess the salaries it would work. Can you imagine Eichel running a line after you have to face Bergeron, Pasternak, and Marchand, and then they just roll out the next line of Eichel and whoever else? Like, ugh, that gives me chills thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, that would be as good a top six in the NHL as you can find for sure. I, it, those teams are just so off my radar right now.
Yeah. And then the other 2 teams that have been more realistically linked to Jack Eichel are the Los Angeles Kings, and then probably the number 1 suitor for him right now would be the New York Rangers. They're the team obviously with the most money, and they are a team that's on the rise. And they already have Artemi Panarin. Wow, I really struggle with that one. And they've kind of got a couple solid goalies and Jacob Trouba in the back end, and having a centerman obviously is kind of another really key position that you need. And so if they could make a move for him or wait it out and get him in free agency, then this Rangers team is just another key position filled for them as they rebuild towards becoming a contender once again. And that might be a good fit for him there.
Yeah, if I'm Buffalo, I'd rather bet on a team like the Kings or the Rangers who are attempting to ascend right now than like a proven top team like the Boston Bruins, just in terms of return on your draft picks. I like you said, that I mean, Bergeron and Marchand don't have that much longer on their longevity. So maybe you can time the picks and say this Boston Bruins teams with just a Pasternak and an Eichel is going to be too thin, and the return on those draft picks seems promising, whereas the Rangers and Kings might do well in the draft for the next couple of years and then start to ascend. So, I mean, it all depends on what picks GMs are willing to offer up. That's all you can ask for an Eichel. So
Yeah. I think in the end he won't get moved just because he's just too valuable. It's hard to even there's no real precedent really for this type of trade. And in the end, I think they're going to end up losing him to free agency, which will suck. But it's so hard to sell your fans on trading a player like that because most of what you're getting back is not even like tangible. It's not like a guy you can put. So I was reading comments in this article. Someone mentioned like Colorado might do Ranton and Byram and then a pick, which would be interesting. But and that's actually a trade where, as Buffalo ownership, you can point to Ranton and you can point to Byram and see these are cornerstones, right? These are like proven NHL commodities, or well, at least Ranton is. But if you're making a trade for mostly draft capital, and this was similar in a James Harden trade, like you want to actually have something you can show fans because you know that pick is most likely not going to be number one for for any of the teams that you're trading him to because he's going to make a team better. So yeah, it's an unprecedented kind of trade market, and he would fetch a lot in return. Um, so it'll be interesting to follow. I just feel bad for Buffalo Sabres fans, man. Like, at least they have the Bills because it's just been a rough go for the last decade almost.
yeah, I think it's probably almost at the point where they say this experiment hasn't worked out. Time to move in a new direction. I would say the Bruins Leafs Kessel trade worked out well for a team giving up like a marquee star difference maker player and getting an unfortunately excellent return on those draft picks. Uh, Tyler Seguin and Dougie Hamilton being the two teams Boston drafted, although neither player totally blossomed into their own in the Bruins logo.
Yeah. Okie dokie. That was a little bit more hockey talk than usual, but fun to really break things down. And we'll have some more action to catch up on Monday. But for now, we'll take a quick break and come back for some Combat Corner.